The cold isn't just weather, it's a living thing. It watches you. It waits. And when it decides you're done, it doesn't rush. It just squeezes, slow, patient, like it's got all the time in the world. In 1914, a British explorer named Ernest Shackleton sailed into Antarctica with a mission that sounded straight up insane. He wanted to cross the entire continent on foot. No shortcuts. No maybe later. Just him, his crew, and the coldest place on Earth. His ship was called Endurance. Even the name felt like a flex. There were 27 men on board, sailors, scientists, a photographer, tough guys, quiet guys, funny guys, all of them thinking, yeah, this is gonna be hard, but we'll manage. Then the ocean changed, not with a big dramatic moment, more like a vibe shift. The water got thick. The waves stopped behaving. The sea started looking stiff. Then someone shouted from above, "Pack ice ahead." If you've never seen pack ice, let me paint it. It's not one iceberg. It's a moving city of ice slabs, 1,000 pieces, all pushing, all grinding, all trying to lock together. Endurance kept going anyway. The engine pushed, the crew worked, and Shackleton stood on deck like he owned the moment. Then the ship shuddered, hard, like it hit a wall you couldn't see. They tried to power through. They couldn't. The ice had them. At first it didn't feel like doom. It felt like a delay, like all right, we'll wait it out. A few days maybe, days became weeks, weeks became months. They stayed busy, shoveled snow, checked supplies, hunted when they could. Told jokes they didn't even find funny anymore just to hear a human voice. But at night, when the wind quieted down, you could hear the ice creak, groan, snap, like the world was cracking its knuckles. Shackleton ran the ship like a small town. Same meal times, same routines, same rules. Because he knew something most people learn too late. Your body can survive pain, but if your mind falls apart, you're cooked. Then the warning signs got louder. One morning, a deep crack echoed beneath the hull. The ship jolted sideways, not forward, sideways. That's when the crew realized. This wasn't a pause, this was pressure. The ice wasn't holding them. It was crushing them. Another day, another crack. A mast leaned at a sick angle. Metal fittings snapped like toothpicks. Men ran, hands shaking, eyes wide, and Shackleton didn't panic. He just stared at the ice with a tight jaw like he was watching something he couldn't stop. Then he called everyone together. No big speech. No dramatic performance. Just the words nobody wanted to hear. The ship is doomed. You could feel the air leave the group, like someone punched the whole crew in the chest. And then Shackleton said the next line like it was normal. "We'll camp on the ice." Camp on the ice. They started hauling supplies off the ship. Food, tools, tents, lifeboats, anything they could drag. They worked fast because the Endurance was dying in real time. And as they stepped off the deck onto the frozen sea, it hit them. This ship was their home, their safety, their last warm idea. And now they were leaving it behind. Shackleton stayed until the end, not because he was stubborn, because he wanted his men to see him standing strong even if he was terrified inside. Then the ice shifted again. Hard. The ship lurched like it got hit by a truck. A beam snapped. A shout cut the air. And Shackleton turned fast. Because the Endurance wasn't dying slowly anymore. It was dying right now. And the next sound they heard wasn't the wind. It wasn't the sea. It was the ship breaking apart like a coffin cracking open. The Endurance didn't sink like in movies. No clean goodbye, no dramatic music moment, it just folded. Wood screamed. Iron snapped. The deck buckled like it was made of cardboard. The crew dragged what they could onto the ice. Crates, tents, food, tools, lifeboats, anything not already swallowed. Then they built a camp on a floating sheet of frozen sea. A literal camp on the ocean, made of ice. They called it Ocean Camp like naming it could make it less insane. Days turned into weeks again, and the ice drifted wherever it wanted. North, west, doesn't matter. The ice doesn't care what you want. They rationed food. They hunted seals and penguins. They boiled whatever could be boiled. They had sled dogs too. At first the dogs were the only fun thing out there. Loud, playful, alive, but the math turned ugly fast. More mouths meant less time. Hard choices got made. The kind of choices nobody wants to talk about. The kind that leaves your stomach twisted for years. And still, the ice refused to let them go. They tried dragging the lifeboats across the ice toward open water. But the ice was broken, jagged, shifting under their feet. It was like trying to carry a car across shattered glass. While the glass moves, men slipped, fell, stood back up, because quitting wasn't even an option. Quitting was basically suicide. Then the ocean finally opened up in cracks, dark water showing through the white. Shackleton gathered the crew. We take to the boats, 3 lifeboats, a few oars, and an ocean that looked angry. The sea hit them like a slap from a frozen giant. Salt spray froze on their faces. The oars felt like iron bars. They rowed for days, cold, sick, half-starved. And then in the distance they saw rock. Elephant Island, land, not warm land, not friendly land, but solid land. They dragged themselves onto the shore like ghosts. Some cried, some laughed, some just stared at the ground like they couldn't believe it wasn't moving. But the relief lasted like 5 seconds, because Elephant Island was a trap. No towns, no shipping lanes. No help coming soon, just wind, rock, and loneliness. They built a shelter by flipping a lifeboat upside down, a low cave of wood and hope. Men lay packed together like sardines trying to share warmth. Then Shackleton made the hardest decision yet. He wasn't staying, because if they stayed and waited they'd die, slowly, one by one. So he picked 5 men to go with him. They took the strongest lifeboat, the James Caird. The plan was insane. Sail about 800 miles across the Southern Ocean to South Georgia Island, where there was a whaling station. 800 miles. In a lifeboat. The crew watched him prep the boat. Nobody wanted to say what they were thinking out loud. Because the truth was brutal. If Shackleton fails, they're done. Before he left, Shackleton knelt by the men staying behind. I'm coming back for you, not I'll try. Not we'll see. I'm coming back. Then the James Caird shoved off. Oars dipped. Waves rose. The boat got smaller, smaller. Then it vanished into gray water and white spray. And the men on Elephant Island stood there, staring, because they didn't just watch Shackleton leave. They watched their future sail into a storm. And as the last glimpse of the boat disappeared, one man whispered the question nobody wanted to ask. What if we never see him again? The James Caird wasn't a ship. It was a lifeboat with way too much responsibility. 6 men. A tiny sail, a few supplies, and the most violent ocean on Earth. The sea didn't roll, it attacked. Waves slammed the boat sideways. Water poured in non-stop. They bilayed until their hands looked like raw meat. They couldn't sleep like normal people. Sleeping meant dying. So they dozed sitting up, shaking, freezing, waking up to more water in the boat. Ice formed on their clothes, on the ropes, on the wood, and the weight of that ice could sink them, so they had to chip it off, over and over and over. Shackleton stayed awake more than anyone. He watched his men for signs of mental collapse. Because out there, exhaustion doesn't just make you tired. It makes you stupid. It makes you careless. It makes you dead. Their navigator, Frank Worsley, had to do near miracles. He'd get a few seconds of sun through the clouds, take a reading, do math with frozen fingers, then lose the sky again. If he missed by even a little, they wouldn't hit South Georgia. They'd drift forever until the ocean finished the job. Days blurred together. At one point, one man started talking nonsense. Eyes glazed, like his brain had checked out. Shackleton leaned close. "Look at me, stay with us." And somehow the man did. Then, after what felt like a lifetime, they saw it. A dark line on the horizon, South Georgia. They didn't scream. They didn't jump. They just stared because it didn't feel real. They reached land wrecked, half dead, stumbling like zombies. But the island had one more punch ready. They landed on the wrong side. The side with cliffs. The side with no whaling station. The side that might as well have been a different planet. They tried to sail around. The wind said nope. So Shackleton looked inland. Mountains, glaciers. No map, no proper gear, just another impossible choice. He picked 2 men to cross with him, 3 total. Then they started walking. No trail, just snow, rock, and silence. They climbed ridges that could drop them into nothing. They slid down ice slopes, praying they wouldn't slam into boulders. And then they heard something. A whistle, not wind, not birds. A human whistle. They froze. Then they heard it again. That's when reality hit them. They were close to people, real people. They pushed harder, limping, stumbling, refusing to stop. Finally, they crested a ridge and saw lights, buildings, smoke, civilization. They walked into the whaling station looking like ghosts. Workers stared like they were seeing a nightmare walk in off the snow. Shackleton didn't waste time. "My men are on Elephant Island. Help." And the station understood immediately. This wasn't some heroic story. This was a rescue mission still happening. They fed Shackleton, warmed him. Then he tried to go back, tried. Rescue attempts failed. Ice blocked the way. Storms forced ships to turn around. Each failure meant the men on Elephant Island were still there, still starving, still waiting. Shackleton stood at the dock, staring at the sea, tired, but not done. Then he said the words that kept the story alive. "We go again." Midroll CTA. If you want more real survival stories told like a movie, hit like and subscribe. It helps the channel a ton. And it tells YouTube you want more stories that go this hard. All right, back to it. Because the next attempt was his last shot. And if the ocean said no one more time, those men on Elephant Island wouldn't make it. Back on Elephant Island, time felt cursed. Every day sounded the same. Wind, waves, silence. Men lived under an overturned lifeboat packed together like matches in a box. Wet clothes, frozen feet, coughs that wouldn't stop. Food was low. Hope was lower. And the worst part wasn't the cold. It was not knowing. Not knowing if Shackleton survived the ocean. Not knowing if he made it to the whaling station. Not knowing if he was already dead. The man in charge there, Frank Wilde, did something smart. Every morning he'd say, "Pack up, lads. The boss might come today." At first, guys smiled. Then they stopped reacting. But Wilde kept saying it anyway. Because sometimes hope isn't a feeling. It's a habit. Storms hit. Snow buried the shelter. Men got weaker. Small arguments turned into big ones, not because they were bad people, because stress turns tiny things into weapons. One man would stare at the horizon for hours. Another would mumble prayers. Another would just lay there, eyes open, like he'd already left. Then one day, a sound. A distant engine. Men stumbled outside like they forgot how to walk. And through the fog, a ship. A real ship. Frank Wilde's voice cracked. "Lads, it's him." The ship drew closer. And then they saw Shackleton standing at the rail. He got off the boat and stepped onto the beach. He looked older, thinner. But those eyes were still locked in. He counted the men fast, one by one. And then he asked the question that hit like a wave. "Are you all well?" Wilde answered, "All safe, all well." Shackleton exhaled like he'd been holding his breath for a year. Because the miracle happened. Not one man died. They rushed to load everyone up because the sea was already changing. Wind rising. Waves slapping harder. The captain yelled to move fast. Tom climbed onto the ship, shaking, not from cold, from shock. He looked back at Elephant Island, that ugly rock prison, and for the first time he believed it. They were really leaving. Cliffhanger. But as the ship turned away, Shackleton stared into the distance like he just remembered something. Because surviving Antarctica was one thing, but returning home meant facing a world that had changed without them. People think surviving means you get a happy ending. Like you step off the ship, kiss the ground, and everything feels perfect. But survival doesn't work like that. It leaves marks. On the rescue ship, the men didn't celebrate much. Some slept like they were trying to catch up on an entire year. Some stared at the water like they still didn't trust it. They talked about home in quiet voices. Mothers, wives, kids, warm beds, real food, and then reality hit. The world had moved on. War had reshaped everything. News waited for them like a second storm. Shackleton got praised, of course, but not because he conquered Antarctica. He didn't. He failed the original mission. But he succeeded in the only way that mattered. He brought everyone home. And that's why people still talk about him. Because the true mission didn't become crossing a continent. It became this. Nobody dies, that's it. That's the whole legacy. When the ship got crushed, Shackleton didn't cling to ego. He didn't cling to the plan. He switched the mission. Save every single man. And he lived that decision every day. By keeping routines when morale was collapsing. By watching the quiet guys who were slipping. By giving away his own comforts. By refusing to let hope die. A man on that expedition wrote something later that stuck. He didn't save us with strength. He saved us with attention. Because attention is love when everything else is gone. Years passed. The world changed. But the story stayed. A ship trapped and crushed. Men living on floating ice. A lifeboat crossing 800 miles of ocean. A mountain crossing with no map. A rescue that almost didn't happen, and somehow everyone lived. So yeah, Shackleton didn't beat Antarctica, but he beat the thing that usually wins out there: hopelessness. If this story hit you, share it with someone who needs it right now. Someone who's in their own frozen ocean moment. Because plans fall apart, life gets messy, and you can still make it through. And if you want more true stories told like a movie, subscribe. We've got more coming that'll keep you locked in. Because somewhere out there the ice is still moving, and Shackleton's story still whispers the same message. Don't quit. Not today.